What if I told you that standing up for your own principles over, like, a $50 unfair phone bill could actually legally prevent you from getting a job 5 years from now?
I mean, it sounds completely absurd, but it happens all the time.
Right. Welcome to today's deep dive. Today we are talking about the terrifying, completely emotionless math of financial collapse.
Yeah, and if you are listening to this, you probably already understand the basics of credit.
Exactly. We aren't doing Credit 101. We are pulling from a massive dossier of sources. Today we've got an exhaustive list of 500 real questions Canadians ask when they hit absolute financial rock bottom.
Plus expert discussions and some really granular data on algorithmic credit repair.
So the mission today is to basically map out the exact anatomy of a financial downward spiral. We're going to demystify this uniquely Canadian lifeline called the consumer proposal.
Which is such a critical tool.
It really is. And finally, we're going to give you a highly practical and honestly surprisingly psychological roadmap to completely rebuilding your financial trust in a system that basically assumes you are guilty.
And I think this is such a critical mission because when you are staring down this mountain of debt, right, and your phone is ringing for the 5th time today from some unknown number, your autonomic nervous system just completely takes over.
Oh, for sure. You're just panicking.
Exactly. You enter the state of financial fight or flight. Executive function just completely shuts down.
Yeah.
You're really just trying to survive the day, which means that strategic long-term planning required to actually navigate out of the mess. That goes completely out the window.
Right. And to regain that strategic footing, I think we first have to examine the sheer velocity of the descent.
The speed is what catches people off guard.
Because we are not talking about, years of reckless spending here. We are talking about how incredibly fast the system turns on you. It frequently begins with just one seemingly harmless mispayment.
Yeah.
So let's look at the actual timeline of financial decay.
Yeah.
At 30 days late, the bank's automated systems basically flag the account.
Right, they fire a warning shot. The bank reports that delinquency to Equifax and TransUnion, and your score takes an immediate, localized hit.
Just a little bent.
Exactly. But the real danger happens when those internal models shift you into a higher risk tier at the 60-day mark.
Okay.
And by 90 to 180 days, this fundamental accounting shift occurs on the bank's end. This is what's known as the dreaded charge-off.
And a lot of people hear that term written off or charge off, and they mistakenly assume the debt just sort of evaporated, right?
Oh, yeah. That is a huge misconception.
They think, the bank made enough money this year, they claimed it as a tax loss, and now everybody is in the clear.
If only it works that way.
Right. But a charge-off absolutely does not extinguish the legal obligation to pay. It simply means the original bank has decided the debt is no longer a performing asset.
Right.
So to satisfy their own financial regulators and, maintain their required capital reserves, they just move it to the liability column.
And then they package your debt and sell it off, usually for literal pennies on the dollar.
Wow.
Yeah, they sell it to these aggressive third-party collection agencies whose entire business model relies on applying just maximum psychological pressure to extract a margin.
And this is when the relentless phone calls begin.
No, absolutely.
Yeah.
And the reason this spiral is so frustrating is that it doesn't always take a catastrophic life event to trigger it,
Yeah.
One of our sources highlighted a woman whose credit profile was just completely destroyed over a single unpaid telecom bill.
Yeah, I saw
She refused to pay it on purpose, right? Because she was actively disputing the charge.
She was taking a principled stand against a massive corporation that clearly made a billing error, which is, such a human, understandable reaction.
Right, absolutely.
You look at your overall financial Jenga tower, which might be totally solid, and you think, I'm just going to pull out this one unfair block. I am not paying it until they fix it.
Yeah, but that assumption completely misunderstands how the credit reporting algorithm actually functions.
It really does.
The algorithm doesn't evaluate the structural integrity of your whole life. It just watches that one block.
Right, because the credit algorithm is just a blunt instrument. It possesses absolutely no morality module.
Zero. It doesn't have one.
It does not care about your principles or the context of your dispute or how incredibly unfair the telecom company's being.
No. It is strictly a binary data ingestion engine.
Right. It measures one metric and one metric only, which is compliance to agreed-upon deadlines.
That's it.
When the data feeds from the telecom company to the credit bureaus, the algorithm simply sees a blank space where a payment should be. And it instantly tanks the score because, to the math, Non-compliance equals risk.
So the financially optimal move, however bitter it tastes, is to just feed the algorithm the on-time minimum payment it demands just to protect your data profile.
Right, and then you fight the corporation for a refund on the back end.
Exactly. You cannot win a moral argument with a line of code.
No, you can't. But okay, let's say the Jenga tower has already fallen. The account charged off, and the collection calls are just driving you insane.
Yeah.
I know there's a really pervasive strategy out there where people try to just wait out the clock, right? They rely on the statute of limitations.
Oh, man.
But looking at the legal mechanisms and the sources, that seems like a massive, highly precarious trap.
It is arguably the most dangerous trap in personal finance.
Wow.
So in Canada, most provinces enforce a 2-year statute of limitations on legal action for unsecured debt.
Okay, 2 years.
Which means if a collection agency does not formally take you to court within 2 years of your last payment, they permanently lose the legal mechanism to garnish your wages or, force payment through the court system.
All right, but the debt still exists, right?
Yes, the debt still exists, and the default remains a toxic stain on your credit report for up to 7 years. But the immediate legal threat is neutralized.
Okay, but the trap lies in how easily that 2-year clock can be reset.
Exactly.
Because legally, a partial payment isn't just a financial transaction. It is considered a fresh, formal admission of the debt's validity.
Yes.
If you make even a tiny $5 payment just to get the collection agent off the phone, or if you write them an email acknowledging the balance, that action instantly restarts the provincial limitation period back to day one.
You are literally handing them back the exact legal weapon they need to garnish your wages.
God, that's terrifying.
It is a legal minefield, and you are basically walking through it blindfolded.
So, if outrunning the collection agencies is legally dangerous, and bankruptcy is the absolute nuclear option where you just surrender your assets in total liquidation, there has to be a middle ground.
There is.
There must be a mechanism where the bank recovers a portion of their capital and the consumer actually survives the ordeal.
And that brings us to the consumer proposal.
Right.
This is a uniquely Canadian lifeline, and it functions as a legally binding negotiation, but it's administered exclusively by a licensed insolvency trustee.
Okay, so how does it actually work?
Well, instead of declaring total bankruptcy, the trustee evaluates your actual income, your living expenses, and your assets. And then they structure a formal offer to your creditors to pay back a fraction of what you owe over a maximum of 5 years.
So, like, if you owe $50,000 across multiple credit cards, the trustee might determine you can reasonably afford to pay back maybe $15,000 over those 5 years.
Exactly.
But the obvious question any analytical listener is going to ask here is, what if the creditors just say no?
Right.
Like, if I owe a massive financial institution 50 grand, why would they voluntarily vote yes to an offer where they take a massive loss?
It all comes down to pure actuarial math and recovery models.
Okay.
When your trustee submits the proposal, the creditors vote on whether to accept it, and the vote is actually weighted by the dollar amount of debt each institution holds.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, the banks run the numbers. They know that if they reject your proposal, your next mathematical step is full bankruptcy. And in a bankruptcy scenario, unsecured creditors, like credit card companies, often receive absolutely 0 cents on the dollar.
Because secured creditors, like the bank holding your mortgage,
Okay.
get paid first out of whatever liquidated assets actually exist.
Precisely. So the unsecured lenders look at your $15,000 offer and realize that recovering 30% of the outstanding debt over 5 years is statistically vastly superior to a total loss.
That makes total sense.
And once the majority of your creditors by dollar value vote yes, the agreement is legally locked in for everyone, even the creditors who voted no.
Wow. And the immediate benefit of that filed paperwork isn't just the reduced balance, right? It's the profound psychological relief of the stay of proceedings.
The stay of proceedings is huge.
Yeah. The literal second the trustee files the proposal with the federal government, an absolute legal shield drops over you.
The relief is instantaneous.
Collection agencies are legally barred from contacting you. Active wage garnishments are immediately halted, and all interest is permanently frozen at 0.
The bleeding just stops. But, and this is a big but, that legal shield comes with a severe systemic cost.
Yeah, it's not free.
Entering a consumer proposal triggers an R7 rating on your credit profile.
Right. And for our financially literate audience, we know an R7 isn't just a bad grade on a report card. It acts like a system-wide quarantine flag.
That's exactly what it is.
It signals to every interconnected financial database that you required a legal intervention to settle your debts. And the duration of that quarantine is honestly staggering.
It really is.
It stays on your report for 3 years after the proposal is fully completed.
Which means if you utilize the full 5 years to pay off the proposal, plus the 3-year penalty period, you are looking at 8 total years of visibility, where lenders see that severe quarantine flag.
8 years.
Yeah, and the scope of who looks at that flag has expanded dramatically. Credit scores have mutated way beyond simple lending.
They really function as a blunt societal background check now. A telecom company uses that data because they are essentially handing you a $1,000 piece of technology on an unsecured monthly payment plan.
Right.
Landlords use it because handing over the keys to a $500,000 real estate asset requires knowing if the tenant is a flight risk. Even employers requiring security clearances in government or finance utilize this data.
Because they rely on predictive analytics. Statistically speaking, across millions of historical data points, past financial distress is viewed by algorithms as the most reliable predictor of future behavioral risk.
Wow.
An R7 rating basically tells an automated HR screening tool that you possess a vulnerability.
It completely strips away human nuance. The algorithm doesn't care if the proposal was triggered by a medical emergency, a divorce, or, a global pandemic.
It doesn't care at all.
And we also need to address the legal vulnerability of the spousal contagion, because this stood out in the sources.
Oh, this is a massive blind spot for so many people.
In Canada, your credit profile is entirely individual, right? Getting married doesn't magically merge your credit scores. But joint accounts are a huge liability.
Huge. If you file a consumer proposal and you share a joint credit card or a joint line of credit with your spouse, that stay of proceedings, that legal shield we talked about, only protects the person who filed.
Wait, really? So what happens to the spouse?
The bank will immediately pivot and ruthlessly pursue your non-filing spouse for 100% of the remaining balance on that joint account.
Oh my God.
Yeah, so disentangling joint finances and removing secondary users is an absolutely critical strategic step before filing any insolvency paperwork.
That is such a vital piece of advice. So the stakes of navigating this quarantine period are astronomically high. But let's look forward to the rebuild.
Oh, okay, the light at the end of the tunnel.
Right. You survived the pressure cooker, you've paid off the proposal, and you finally have your certificate of completion. The slate is legally wiped clean of the debt. But the financial algorithms still fundamentally distrust you. So how do you force a blind, risk-averse data engine to lift that quarantine flag?
You enter the marathon of the rebuild. You must aggressively force Equifax and TransUnion to start ingesting new, positive behavioral data.
Right.
And the primary, most effective tool for doing this is the secured credit card.
Okay, but I always look at secured cards as financial training wheels, where you actually have to bring your own concrete.
That's a great way to put it.
Because you give the bank a cash deposit, say $500, and they hold that cash as collateral. That deposit becomes your exact credit limit.
Right?
So if you've just spent 5 years clawing your way out of debt, locking up your own hard-earned cash just to borrow it back from a massive bank feels incredibly counterintuitive. You might be thinking, why would I ever agree to these terms?
I mean, it feels entirely backwards until you reframe the entire objective of the exercise.
Okay, reframe it for us.
You are not acquiring a tool to buy groceries. You are buying data.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah.
Buying data.
Lenders know you managed to save $500. What they lack is predictive behavioral data. They need to observe how you manage a revolving credit line month after month without defaulting.
So the deposit eliminates the lender's risk, which is why you can actually secure approval even with an active R7 rating.
Exactly.
But for you, the consumer, it opens a direct, heavily monitored pipeline to the algorithm.
Yeah.
Every single on-time payment injects positive compliance data into your file, slowly diluting the historical stain of the proposal.
And the math of injecting that positive data is governed by highly specific algorithmic rules. The most critical one is the 30% rule.
Right.
Credit utilization, which is the ratio of your active statement balance to your total available credit limit, is one of the most heavily weighted predictive metrics in the entire scoring model.
Yeah.
You must keep your utilization below 30% and ideally under 10%.
So if your secured limit is $500, you should never let the statement balance creep above $50 to $150. But why does the system care? If you always pay it back in full, why does the algorithm penalize you for using $450 of your $500 limit?
Because maximizing your available credit signals severe liquidity distress to the predictive models.
Oh, I see.
It mathematically implies you are living paycheck to paycheck and that you're relying on borrowed capital just to survive the month.
Right.
Keeping your utilization under 10% sends a powerful countersignal. It tells the algorithm that you possess ample liquid cash and you are only using the credit facility for convenience, not out of desperation.
That perfectly debunks what might be the ultimate, most destructive myth in personal finance.
Oh, the balance carrying myth.
Yes, I see so many people carrying a small balance from month to month because they genuinely believe that paying interest to the bank builds their credit score faster.
It's crazy how common that is.
But looking at the actual data ingestion mechanics, the algorithm doesn't even parse paid interest, does it?
No, it does not. The credit scoring models do not factor paid interest into your score calculation in any capacity.
So paying interest does literally nothing for your score.
Nothing at all. The algorithm only parses two data points at the end of your billing cycle: your statement balance and whether you made the payment by the due date.
Wow.
Carrying a balance does absolutely nothing to accelerate your score. It only costs you real, compounding money and keeps your utilization ratio unnecessarily high. The golden rule is absolute. Pay your statement balance in full, every single month.
And while we are on the topic of myths, we really have to address the predatory scams that target people during this vulnerable rebuild phase.
Oh, absolutely.
If you are desperately trying to buy a house and you see a company offering pay-for-delete services promising some secret loophole to magically erase accurate historical defaults from your Equifax report for an upfront fee you need to run the other way.
Fast.
Due to Canada's strict data integrity laws, pay-for-delete is technically and legally impossible.
Yeah, if a debt collector or a credit bureau actually scrubbed true, factual, historical data in exchange for a fee, they would fundamentally compromise the integrity of the national credit database.
Right.
They would lose their federal reporting privileges entirely. You simply cannot buy a clean slate.
Right. The only mechanism for repair is time and heavily monitored, disciplined behavior.
Which brings us to the end game. Rebuilding credit is a marathon of deeply boring, repetitive discipline.
So boring.
Swiping the card, keeping the balance aggressively low, paying it off in full, month after month.
Right. But eventually, the math works in your favor. The R7 rating expires and drops off the report. Your score climbs. The quarantine flag is finally lifted, and you arrive at a point where you have a genuine mathematical fresh start.
And transitioning from a state of recovery to actively building generational wealth is just a profound milestone. But it also introduces a new layer of complexity.
Exactly. Because even when the R7 drops off, your historical file can still appear pretty complex to automated underwriting software.
Oh, for sure.
When you are finally ready for major life milestones like securing a mortgage for a home or obtaining comprehensive life insurance to protect your family, you really cannot rely on standard frontline bank algorithms.
No, they'll just spit out an automatic rejection based on old patterns.
Right. You need an architect who understands how to package your financial narrative for risk-averse underwriters. And that is specifically why seeking out dual licensed professionals, like the team at Muneris Financial Services, provides an exceptional strategic advantage.
Absolutely. Having a single, comprehensive architectural view of your finances is critical at this juncture.
Yeah.
You are integrating major liabilities like a mortgage with vital risk management tools like life insurance.
And what makes Muneris Financial Services uniquely valuable here is the depth of their team's integrated expertise.
Right.
They aren't just processing standard real estate paperwork. The firm's CEO, Mansour, is actually a qualified life insurance broker alongside their experienced team of licensed mortgage and real estate brokers.
Which is incredibly rare to find all under one roof.
It is. For someone who has spent 5 years painstakingly rebuilding their financial foundation, being able to access elite, strategic advice across multiple financial disciplines, mortgages, real estate, and life insurance, all from a single trusted source, is mathematically and logistically invaluable.
It ensures that your mortgage strategy doesn't inadvertently conflict with your long-term wealth protection goals. They understand the entire board, not just one piece of it.
Exactly. If you have done the grueling work of surviving the spiral and you are ready to take that next massive step toward building wealth, you need the right team to guide the transaction.
Definitely.
So you can connect directly with Muneris Financial Services by calling their cell at 778-898-3202. You can also email Mansour directly at mansour@muneris.com or just explore their comprehensive services at muneris.com. Again, to get that expert guidance on your side, the cell is 778-898-3202.
Aligning yourself with professionals who understand both the mechanics of lending and the necessity of asset protection is kind of the ultimate reward for completing that long rebuild.
It really is. So as we bring this deep dive home, I want to connect back to you, the listener.
Yeah.
We've mapped out the terrifying rapid descent into collections, the actuarial math that makes the consumer proposal work, and the deeply boring algorithmic marathon of the rebuild. But if you take away nothing else from this dossier, remember this fundamental truth. Your credit score is just a snapshot of data at a specific moment in time.
That's all it is. It is a highly dynamic number. It is absolutely not a permanent reflection of your future potential, and it most certainly does not define your character or your personal worth.
The path from financial panic to profound peace doesn't require secret loopholes or magic. It just requires radical honesty with yourself, strict, unemotional adherence to the algorithmic rules of the game, and profound patience.
Yeah.
The discipline you forged during those quarantine years will honestly make your financial foundation virtually bulletproof for the rest of your life.
Because small, consistent victories rebuild your confidence. And eventually, the system has no choice but to trust the data you provide.
But I want to leave you with a final, somewhat provocative thought to chew on.
Okay.
Think back to the very beginning of this conversation. The woman who refused to pay an unfair $50 telecom bill and had her entire life turned upside down.
Right.
We've established that the algorithmic system is incredibly fragile and putative on the way down. A single disputed bill, one attempt to take a principled stand against a corporation, can destroy your data profile overnight.
Overnight?
Yet, as we've explored, rebuilding that trust takes years of flawless, heavily monitored, deeply boring behavior.
The asymmetry between the descent and the recovery is staggering.
It really is. So if the modern credit system is that ruthlessly unforgiving on the way down and that exhausting to climb back up, is it actually designed to measure our financial trustworthiness? Or is it simply designed to measure our unconditional obedience? Something to mull over the next time you swipe your card.